Well, thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, I met you in kind of the beginning of 2020. Great time. And you helped me purchase my first house hack. So,
Yep.
yeah, I wanted an agent who was also versed in investing and was pointed to you. So I appreciate it. But you have rentals of your own. You've been doing this for some time. And
I think you're my youngest buyer ever, and you might be still holding that, so that's pretty badass. Just to let y'all know.
Appreciate it. But I never really heard your story, so I kind of want to dive into that. That's all right. So, what kind of got you started thinking about real estate? What kind of got you motivated to start investing in real estate?
Yeah, so I have always been very sales oriented, and I started working for DSLD Homes as, when they were a very small company, and they had 3 neighborhoods at the time. By the time I left them, they were in 40, and now I think they're in 80 or so. So they grew pretty rapidly. But I had gotten into the real estate thing then, but one of my good friends had bought real estate and flipped and did rentals and stuff like that. And I guess my overall thing that has been my motivation is that I really hate working. And so in my brain, I wanted to figure out a way that I could leverage things to start working for me and not against me. And the idea of using money as not a thing to just spend, but to use it as a tool to make more money is what motivated me to get into that. So I would say that's, and I had a friend that was successful at it, and I'm like, you know, if that guy can do it. And we're still big competitors today. He's also a real estate agent.
So what came first? Was it kind of the idea of investing or being an agent, or how did that lead into becoming an agent?
Yeah, so I always thought, and look, everybody, I think, you know, I always have been sales led. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I can talk to anybody for the most part. I like, I'm led by the carrot a little bit. So sales has been a blessing that it's a way that you can make money for the more energy you put in, the more you can get out of it. So it's kind of on my terms. And I know that's not going to be always everybody's story. Your personality might not be suited for that, but there's different ways to to make the money, whether that's you work more hours, you forgo the immediate gratification by doing what you did, house hacking or whatever, to get that initial amount of money. But for me, I'm talking too much. I don't know the question.
No.
Yeah,
what became?
I know. ADD, by the way. Yeah.
Becoming an agent or investing, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. So sales, the real estate environment let me see it, and then I got to know it, and then I'm like, okay, well, the next step is to invest myself into all the things that I'm helping everybody else with. So kind of that's how I guess it started, you know.
So you had a friend that you were kind of looking up to, like he was doing these types of things. Did you kind of go under his wing, or kind of what resources did you use learning more about investing, or did you? What?
So I would tell you that I really didn't. I wish I would say that I'm like this guy that like listens to podcasts and watch all these. I'm very practical, and I'm one that always looks at worst case scenarios and best case scenarios, and I'm probably always like really finding the worst case scenarios to know, okay, what's the worst can happen here. So I'm not the most risky guy, but I will analyze something kind of from a very practical standpoint, a very simplistic standpoint, and I just, I felt that, I don't know, I just. The idea, I was very motivated by the idea of making money work for me. So there's every deal looked at different, and I guess seeing him do it, and there's some simple rules like the 1% rule, which is hard to find now, but like if I'm buying a $200,000 house, I shoot to get $2,000 rent. I'm a realtor, I can see what areas are bringing, so that gives me an idea. That's a very hard number to work now, but also another rule for me is, I like at least $500 a door cash flow to know that I'll always have some cash flow fill in the bank for a rainy day. Mm-hmm. So depending on how much money you have to put down and your whatever. Mm-hmm. And then, so those are some baselines, and then some other things that I look to is, if I'm willing to forego maybe as much cash flow or, that immediate gratification of cash flow, then I want the property to be a really A property that I know is gonna appreciate, So whereas something that's gonna cash flow more, I might not care quite as much about as the appreciation. So I just looked at different deals in a different way, and I don't know. I just saw my friend do it and kind of.
From the get-go, were you thinking rentals, or were you thinking flipping at first? Or you were
So
always...
rentals first. I've only flipped to this day. I've only flipped 2 properties. I like the idea of not having to deal with taxes by keeping the property and having that cash flow come in. Because like you said, what's motivating me is to see that my income comes in a lot easier than me having to grind, and
always find the next deal.
hopefully replace my, income or even exceed it by doing that.
So what was kind of your biggest hurdle finding your first deal, and you want to kind of expand on your first deal?
Okay, so my first technical deal was I moved out of my house and rented my personal home out, which always that's a great idea because your typically interest rate's better because of your residence. So I moved out, but I would say my real first deal of kind of stepping out and buying something, I found a house on Facebook that the lady was asking $40,000 for, and I think I had maybe $40,000 in cash that I had saved, and
like Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, or like.
Well, I don't even know if Marketplace existed yet at that point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like, maybe, it was on Facebook, and
So
it was
like
a
in the
shared
comments.
post.
Oh, really?
It was like a shared post, and somebody sent it to me, and I, so, on the first day, I immediately called, and I went with my contract in hand, and I go in, and the house is it's like A&E hoarders take times 10. And it was one of these situations where she inherited the house, and she was embarrassed to even take me through it. So I felt that energy. So I'm thinking, okay, well, she's not going to want to do this too many times. And it was inherited, so there was really it was all a gain. And she happened to say, also, I'm getting married, and it's going to cost me $15,000. So I'm like, well.
You have a number.
That's a number. So anyway, so after looking at it, I mean, no lie, it was gonna, I had no idea how much it would cost, but I thought, man, if I can get a house for 15 grand, I'll figure it out. So I said, well, let's go and have coffee, and we went to the neighborhood coffee shop, and I said, look, this is the money that I have, this is the money that I have to renovate. Somebody can come and offer you all cash possibly if you continue to do this. You can probably get more. I was very honest where I was, and I think I saw in her that really she just wanted to be kind of done. And so I think I offered her $12,000, and then she's like, well, let me go call a friend. And she went outside, talked to the phone, comes back, and I can do 18. I said, all right, well, let's just do 15 and just have it done. And then she's like, all right, I'm good with that. And then I made sure that we signed the deal because I didn't want any, emotional regret as people do. So I was like, all right, you sure about this? We signed the deal. And of course, I'm a realtor, so I had to let her know that, look, I'm a real estate agent, so there's a thing there, So
what does that look like for people that don't know? So if you're buying a property and you're a realtor, are there certain disclosures? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to disclose that I'm a real estate agent because technically I'm the professional in the situation that maybe that does have an advantage of knowing the market probably better than she would. However, I informed her of what the market was. I knew a lot about that neighborhood from college. I knew. I openly told her, I'm like, you probably could get close to your number, based on the condition. I'm just not the guy that can do that. And it was like I said, I think where she was. I think that's important too, especially if you're finding a deal, to find out what is people's motivation. We always think it's going to be the dollar, but I think people are motivated for different reasons. And for her, there was probably an emotional thing having this house. I mean, being that it was so full of mess, I'm sure that was stressful. And she had a new love that she wanted to tie the knot with, on a $15,000 budget. I don't know how you get a wedding at $15,000, but good for her. But
Go to Man Shack.
right. So that's kind of how that one worked. You know.
So do you know numbers of that? So you bought it for around 15.
Yeah, so I bought it for 15.
Work.
Yeah, so I bought it for 15. I got a bunch of unlicensed contractors that would do cheap labor, and paid for that. You know, because I probably that was one lesson that I learned, is that you know, it's not always the cheapest deal that's the best, because time is money, and then of course there's a reason that they're going to be giving you a deal. So the craftsmanship wasn't all the greatest, but I ended up, I think, putting about $40,000 into it. So I owned it cash by the end of it, and I kept it for 4 or 5 years, and I got steady $1,100 a month. I never really had to do a whole big anything to it. And then I recently, last year, sold it to the community where I buy my properties. I'm very involved in, so I'm on the Downtown Development District. I'm on the Historic Commission. I'm very involved in that community, and our girl who works there wants to live in that community, and she's like, so I sold her that house, and she's gonna actually make it her house, you know, and like really put the money into it more than what an investor would. So it's kind of, you know, sweet that I gave that first property to somebody that loves the community and that I work closely with and all that kind of stuff. So.
Have you gotten any others off of Facebook? Or is that...
Oh, and I sold it for $140,000. So that's the deal.
Great.
So I owned it for like maybe 8 years or since I bought it. So.
Okay. Can you share like a specific success story, or do you have like a favorite deal that you've done?
My favorite deal is probably my personal home. So,
which is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's
so
amazing.
so I and again, why it's my favorite deal. You know, it's a personal home versus an investment, but this happens to be a good investment plus my personal home. So, through real estate, I met someone that I helped sell property, and they were in a distressed situation, and I actually had brought them a buyer at full price, I think plus some of what they had wanted for the house that they were selling, and it was a house that was vacant in downtown Hammond that had been vacant for 60 years, and it's on the Historic Registry. It's one of the founders of the town, and so a lot of people have looked at that house and admired it and said, man, what this could be. And it went through owners that, you know, either didn't have the money or they started and never finished. And so structurally it was in really good shape. Well, brought a buyer, and she was emotionally attached to that property from a standpoint of, can I make it work with the banks? Can I get my kids to buy it? And she waited until the time ran out, and the buyer that I had got mad because she didn't take the offer that was full plus, and wouldn't even return my calls, and she's got like 10 days to make a decision now that her kids are no longer able to make the deal happen. And I'm like, look, we can put her back on the market. And then I go, wait a second, maybe I'll buy it. So, and then I had it looked at, and I gave her a price, and and I restored that, and it probably has, I would say about probably $250,000 to $300,000 in equity, you know.
So it's a historical home. What is it like renovating a historical home? Is there any type of...
Yeah, so you can receive tax credits and so forth. I decided the extent of my project was not worth for whatever I could maybe able to have saved with tax credits. I would have had to deal with people telling me what I can do and what I can't do. So in the area that I'm in, the historic district makes sure that the exterior has to look and stay the same. Interior, you can pretty much do what you want. But if you start taking tax credits, they start telling you what you can do to the interior. And a lot of times those things are even more expensive, so any break that you would have would maybe, so I just didn't want to go down that road. So I just traditionally, I did get a contractor that had done a lot of work in New Orleans, old homes and stuff that was familiar, and yeah.
How long did that renovation take?
It was like less than a year, maybe 8 months. Yeah.
So, kind of changing gears a little bit. So, being an agent and an investor, how do you kind of what are the pros and cons of being an agent that also invests in real estate? Like,
Yeah, so the pros are, obviously, as an agent, my eyes and ears are always to the ground, and I'm always seeing what's active and happening because I'm in it every day. So that's an advantage to me as an investor, but also to any of the clients that I take on, that I'm able to bring value there and be knowledgeable. You know, I would say the negative that could being that I am licensed and I am an investor is, well, if you're licensed and you're an investor, what are you gonna help me, because you're gonna want all the deals, kind of deal, right? Well, what I would say is that there's more than one way to skin a cat. Everybody has deals that they're comfortable with, neighborhoods that they're used to, or you know, some people are riskier than others. Every deal that comes across my desk, I can think that it's a good deal, but it might not be the deal for me in the time that I'm in or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, I have to consciously make it to where, you know, I have relationships, and my business, my bread and butter is my real estate business. So that's how I bring value to my clients, is being able to bring them deals, but also being an investor myself. The positive is that I've been through it, so I can give them that knowledge from that standpoint, and also protect them. You know, I'm like, man, you don't want to do this. You know, it's easy to sell. I mean, as a realtor, we can, you know, I can sell houses all day, but if I know somebody that I'm in a relationship with to continue to help them grow their portfolio, I'm not going to put them in a situation where I feel like I can't sell and make them a profit. So it just gives me that kind of other side of the insight to be able to really help, you know, help them even more, you know, I think.
So how do you normally come across your deals? Is it?
So at this point, most of the time they're coming to me, just because now my, I guess, you know, my marketing and everything else, people know that I'm an investor. I'm obviously in the real estate industry, so people will come to me with deals. So that's the majority of the time.
You're marketing for like
for being a realtor,
yeah.
And even just knowledge that I do invest in property, you know, especially in the local community in Hammond where I'm at. So I'm getting that more now. But I'm always in it because of my real estate business. So I mean, it's different than just not being a realtor, because you may have another job that you're doing, but I mean, I'm looking at the market every day. I mean, and a lot of them are, like, a lot of people, like, I mean, MLS, you can still find things on MLS. Like, if something's not selling, there's a reason for it. Go and look at where there's a will, there's a way, and there's a reason. And if you can make it work and look outside the box that maybe somebody else couldn't, there might be an opportunity that's actually put on the MLS that people aren't realizing, you know? So
are you still buying? Are you still looking actively, or?
So the answer is yes, I am. However, that ebb and flows depending on where I'm at. And I'm kind of at a spot where I'm deciding, because I kind of had talked about how the motivation of financial freedom has been my motivation. But this is not a completely passive thing either, even though it seems passive. The more you get, you're going to be managing it. And if you're not managing it, you're going to be paying somebody to manage it. And if you're paying somebody to manage it, then you're managing them. So I'm trying to decide, you know, it's addictive to where you always want a deal, you know, but I got to decide life balance, like what is my number, you know? And so I'm working through that, but.
Do you know, or you're going to?
I don't.
Yeah.
Because
Is it a number? Is it?
I've had numbers in my head of what I would like to bring in revenue wise, but it's like, well, but what if something happens to where I need this? You know, it's like this game of, is it quite enough? You know. So I'm working through that. I haven't got that answer yet, but like I said, right now I'm looking at deals, but I'm not like overly active. But if something awesome comes across. And that's the other thing that I would say is that I think a lot of people get hung up in like preparing to prepare, and like they want the perfect deal to come across. not every deal has to be as good as the last one. You have to be in the game, you know?
Your base
It has to
hits,
make,
people say, your base hits.
yeah, it has to make sense, you know? And the more that you get behind you, the easier it is for, maybe you don't need as much cash flow, and you can focus more on the appreciation or whatever that looks like. But every deal should be looked at as what is the goal and how that one can actually help you. But don't not get in the game because the interest rate's too high or the whatever. There's always a reason not to do. Just analyze it from a point of, does this make sense? Can this make me money, and how can it make me money? And am I in a position that I can do that? You know, and the more that you get, the less, if something goes wrong, the less that will hurt, because you're gonna have, you know, more what is it called? Diversity. So.
Yeah. So you're mostly in Hammond, Tangipahoa. Do you have?
Yeah. So I have so right now my current portfolio is I have 12 long-term residential leases. I have 2 commercial, and then I have 6 Airbnb. So it's current. Yeah, yeah. So some of those properties are single family that may have mother-in-law houses on the same property. My commercial is a downtown historic building in Hammond that I have 2 Airbnb upstairs, and then a Hot Works franchise and a dance studio is renting underneath. And then I have, so most of my stuff's all in Hammond. I do have a Airbnb in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, so which has been a very good return, very good investment. Yeah. So if you haven't been to Ocean Springs, it's a cool spot. Yeah.
How do you generally finance these deals?
So I'm usually doing, I mean, it really just depends. I'll either do, like on the commercial ones, it's 20-year with 5-year balloon, and then 20% down, and then conventional 30 years when I can, because the interest rates are better and whatever. And then, yeah, and in my head I started when I was like, you know, now where my age is, it's like, okay, well, if I just pay everything off now by, you know, 70, everything's cash, so it's like I'm still at a good time for that. But that's another thing, like the financing needs to make sense for where you are in your life too, you know. For me, I haven't done any like weird, you know, I know there's all different ways to skin a cat, but I've kept it pretty basic.
Thanks. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
So how do you stay informed about the market in kind of like in your backyard in Tangipahoa, as far as like where rents are long-term, Airbnb, like how will you say, what's this gonna rent for per night? And the same thing with house prices.
So, okay, so keeping it simple, there's really, I mean, so for the Airbnb, say in Hammond, I know that community because I'm very ingrained, I'm very in it. And what I realized is the need that I have. Like half of my, like I'm always entertaining in Hammond, and all my people from New Orleans who come up, it's like you think they would be driving to Canada to come to Hammond, so they need a place to stay, they're drinking. So they, their choices have been, you know, Marriott courtyards by the interstate. You know, there's no like really good spots. So Hammond has a need for, there's no boutique hotel like Covington has, or, you know, there's no Southern Hotel, there's no whatever. So it made sense for me when I bought a commercial building that's cool and historic to make a trendy, cool place for people to come stay and walk around, and it diversifies me. So all of my rentals are in like the same neighborhood. That's another thing. So for the single families especially, it's nice, you know, I've gone back and forth. Is it good to have everything because the area tanks? Then that's not good. But from a management standpoint for single family, to have everything kind of in the same area, that's been good. So, and that area that I have all the single families is kind of an area that's walkable, or a minute drive to all the downtown cool stuff, but it's kind of dependent on the street how good it is. And I like the idea of single families, especially starting out, because if it doesn't work out, it's easier to sell, because you can sell to somebody who's going to own or occupy. Whereas if you go sell a fourplex or something, it's going to be another investor who's going to want a deal, right? So you can get out of it, but having those little single families all in the same spot make it somewhat manageable, like you would have manageability of a multifamily because they're all within blocks of one another.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I picked an area that, I like some of my things that I guess in my head, like I like houses that are charming, funky enough to where if they get torn up, it's a character, you know? So I like that idea. And you also, if you have a charming house in a kind of neighborhood that may be dilapidated in one area and the next area is not fine, you'll get that hipster, you know, they're working, they want to be by downtown vibe and all that kind of stuff, and they're paying the notes,
Mm-hmm.
so they're willing to maybe forego the prettiest neighborhood to be in a cool spot, you know. So yeah, so that's
A lot of your tenants are the hipster type.
well, I'd say like service industry, living downtown, those townies that want to be close to everything, young professionals that may not be quite ready to plant where they want to be. So if while they're doing it, they want to be somewhere that's convenient, close to the bar, close to the restaurant, you know, that kind of thing. So.
I know I've run into issues like this lately. I don't know if you have. As far as finding tenants for long-term leases, and I don't know, maybe you can speak to Airbnb as well. In the last 9 months, year or so, has that been a challenge for you, or how are you finding that?
Yeah, so it used to, all my rentals for the most part within a week, I could get them occupied, and I did have one that went almost 2 months, which was very unusual. You know, I think it's lightening up, you know, from what I've seen. So I'm not having that problem anymore. You know, and I don't know, it was weird because it was like a 6-month period that normally the rentals were going, I don't know really what, I mean, I feel like a little ignorant as a real estate agent to say that, but I really couldn't pinpoint one reason that happened as far as rentals in my area. But that was a little strange. But our Airbnb has just picked up again to where we're like 90% occupied on our Hammond ones.
That's great.
So for at least this month and the coming month. So that's been good.
So Airbnb's staying booked and everything. That's great. Yeah.
Yep.
So you've done a new construction project, and if correct me if I'm wrong, it's a duplex, right?
Fourplex.
It's a fourplex. Okay.
Yeah.
So talk me through that deal. I don't know if we've had anybody come up to the REIA and talk about new construction, but kind of talk, how did you find the land? Kind of talk about that whole deal.
Okay, so that was a real estate friend of mine who bought a property, and it had an old home on it, and they tore it down, and after tearing it down, they ran into problems with whatever their plan was and how they needed to be financed for that plan, and I can't remember exactly, but they couldn't get their financing situation to work. So I said, well, let me look at it, and I took it to a builder that I trusted. That's, by the way, that's another thing about the way that my brain operates, is that I try and find people that I think know what the hell they're doing, and I probably put a lot of leverage into them. I don't want to have to know everybody's job, so I probably can be a little over trusting sometimes, maybe whatever with some things, but I went to somebody that I knew that was a good builder, kind of a driver personality,
Who,
and
not how.
thinks out the box. So went there and just, you know, this is what I would need to make this work, and I needed to be under this amount, and can we do that? And then they drew up a plan. I said, okay, I think we can do that. So I built that with the idea of long-term rental, but it was in a location that was great for Airbnb because it was also commercial residential. It was in the same area in downtown Hammond, kind of right on the outskirts of downtown Hammond, but it's still walkable. And so I've turned 2 of those units into Airbnb. So I'm making even more money than the initial plan was. And that's what I would say too. When I've dealt with things, I've never based it off of what I'm making on Airbnb, because I feel like that's, it can get saturated, governmental regulations can come in, whatever. So I've always looked at it as a baseline of what, worst case scenario, what am I going to make as a long-term rental.
So you base all your deals off of what you'll get just as a long-term, your lease rental.
Yes,
right?
and the Airbnb was Lanyard, is Lanyard.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
That's great. So any lessons learned with that?
What, the Airbnb or the new construction?
As far as new construction, I mean, I feel like that's...
I hate to say it. I mean, I just said, okay, this is what I envisioned, what I want it to look like. I need it to be this big to make this much money. I need it to be a 2-2 or whatever, you know.
So what are they?
Gave
Are
it
they
to them.
2 beds?
2 bed and 2 bath, 1,100 square foot units. And I also, like, I'm very on top of style. I'm pretty good with, because I see real estate all the time. I feel like I have an eye for style and stuff. I feel like, you know, like if I see another gray vinyl plank floor, I'm gonna throw up, you know, like so I made my condos more trendy and forward thinking in the aesthetic, you know, to where they stick out for Airbnb, you know, and they've done really well. So
yeah. So you mentioned government regulation. Do you see that ever being an issue as far as Airbnbs in Hammond? Have you had any thoughts?
I mean, it definitely could be, but
have they tried anything?
No. I think Hammond doesn't have they have so many bigger fish to fry probably than to worry about Airbnb. Like, let's get the education down or something like that, you know? Like, and I sit on the board to where if it's happening, I can at least hear about it coming, you know. I'll probably know, you know, I just don't see that happening anytime soon. It's not a big enough deal yet. There's not a, you know.
Yeah. Are you okay with jumping into the numbers of that new construction? Kind of what do you have into it? What it might be worth? What it's bringing in?
Yeah. So
rough numbers?
I think I ended up. I know I bought the lot for about $110,000, and I'm all in for right around $600. So my long-term units, I'm getting $1,600 a unit for the 2, and then the Airbnbs are bringing in on a slow month probably $2,000 a unit, on a good month $4,000. You know, and then, but of course I have expenses out of that, and I have management and, you know, things like that. So I would say $2,500 to $2,800 per. So whatever that adds up, 4, 5, 6, 7. Probably I'm bringing in about $9,000 on a $600,000 investment. So for the 1% rule, I would need $6,000. So
yeah.
You know, so that was a good one.
And it's new construction, so capital expenditures.
Yeah, very low maintenance.
Yeah.
I haven't really had I'm not going to probably have to deal with anything on that for a while.
So maybe can you expand on property management on your long term and on your short term? Do you have any type of systems you have in place for property management on both sides?
Yeah.
Short term, I'm sure it's different, right?
So I have a person named Lauren, and she's sitting right there. And Lauren handles my property management. But I don't think I have probably right at the amount of units to where somebody might think about getting a manager. Typically going to spend about 10%, you know, is of whatever your rent is for that. I'm lucky that I do have Lauren in-house that handles real estate business and stuff, and it's been another way for her to generate income to handle Airbnb and things like that for me. So we do use apartments.com, which is free to use to auto pay for the tenants. It charges them late fees automatically. You know, and then Airbnb has its own tools that we use, you know, and there's another site that's connected to Airbnb that kind of works the same as a, you know, an Expedia, like, you know, how flights change based on need. It's an algorithm that it has, so we've tapped into that.
So it's all in-house, your property management. Okay.
Yep.
So preparing for a guest, what does that look like?
Well, we do promote like local stuff in town. We have like a dine guide, Gnarly Barley Brewing. We leave beer in the fridge for them.
Really?
You know,
Free? It's not like a hotel where they're going to charge you $24
we usually leave 3 cans of beer. So, but a lot of times, you know, it's funny. You leave that stuff. Sometimes it's never even touched. So but they open the fridge and see that you left for them. You're already like sending a good vibe.
That's nice,
you know. So those are little minute costs that I think at the end of the day will get you a good review. You know, reviews are important. Once you get bad ones, they're, you know, it hurts the overall deal. But you know, those little touches, having good house cleaners that know how you want the beds made, and you know, to make sure that things are stocked. So knowing exactly how those things go, and then having backup people for when something happens or you need somebody fast. And that's kind of a learning process too, you know. So we've had some that did not work out, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So do you have any horror stories for either Airbnb or just long-term rentals? Any tenant
Yes.
horror?
So one of my rentals, I had rented to a single mom who worked for a title office that is in the industry that I was in, and I knew her through, going in that office and using them a lot, and so I probably, sometimes when you feel like you have that one arm's length away that you were a little bit more trusting that everything's going to be okay, and I probably, trusted a little more than I should have, but she ended up getting a new boyfriend or something that was taking her out of town all the time, and she decided to use the house as I leave food for the dog, and I leave the dog there all weekend, and the dog just messes in the house and pees in the house, and I'm told that one of her dogs, was a big Doberman, actually died in the kennel from, whatever. So I don't know. That's what I was told. But when that house was turned over, I had to put like $15,000, $20,000 just to get the smell out of the wood floors, and there was just everything was moldings were chewed up, and it was pretty funky. So, but at the end of the day, like, that's part of the deal. You gotta weigh that in. General rule of thumb. My rule of thumb is just to account for 10% for damages and upkeep and whatever or whatever, but of course that was a big hit for that one. But as you get more, those big hits aren't going to hurt because you're, it's spread out. So, and that's not very often that has happened. And I've been doing this for a while, so it's way far outweighs the positive way far outweighs. And there's things that you could do. Go change an air filter once a month to put your eye on your property, or there's different ways to get around that. But like I said, sometimes running to somebody that you might feel like you have it wasn't somebody I knew good enough, but somebody I felt like, okay, since I know them, they're surely not gonna.
Do you allow pets anymore?
Yeah.
Still do?
So
No Dobermans?
So no, well, yeah, right. So there are certain pets that I won't allow just because they're vicious breeds or whatever that insurance doesn't cover. So like I know like pit bulls and things like that I don't mess with. And then I'll say pets, but I usually, if I can get them under 30 pounds, that's great. And it depends on the property. Like if I have all tile floors in a property, that's way more likely that I'll do that than if I have carpet or or whatever that looks like. So it just depends on the situation and the property. So.
So that was a long-term rental. Any Airbnb horror stories, or has that all been smooth
We
sailing?
haven't really had. No.
Okay.
No real bad ones. Yep. But I tell you what, the ones that like sometimes you think are going to be good, like they give you the review. Like somebody complained because the carpet had fuzzies. We got a 4 because there was like fuzzies on the carpet. Yeah, like little lint on lint balls in the carpet from vacuuming it or whatever.
Can you rate them?
That's where right. Yeah, well, you give them a good rating and then you see that they gave you a 4 because a shedding carpet or whatever. But it is what it is.
So do you have any specific tools that you use or software that you use day to day that's really helps you either analyzing deals or being a realtor, anything that you use day to day?
I wish I could say that I did. So I have friends that are like spreadsheet nerds and have all these things and whatever. I'm very practical and keep it simple. How much money is coming in? How much money is going out? So I don't.
It's okay. Keep it simple.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so I guess kind of landing the plane here, given everything you've gone through experience-wise, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out in real estate?
Well, I think what I would say is get in the game. Don't be afraid of getting in the game. Delay immediate gratification. Whatever you need to do to get the money to start, be willing. The long term is going to outweigh that short term pain of however you're going to get the money to start. I would say keep things simple. I think over analyzing, you can go into an analysis paralysis. A lot of times the best deals are when you're making a decisive decision. So have an idea of what your wants and needs are, so that when it comes, you're ready to pounce. Because there's a bunch of other people just like you that are gonna take advantage of that deal while you're deciding if it makes sense or not. So already know in your head your guidelines and be able to make a decisive decision. And then I'd say once you get, which is something that I'm still training my brain, that money is obviously, we need money to eat and have a roof overhead and do all these things. But once you get to a place where you can start looking at money as a tool rather than a necessity to eat or whatever, like money can work to make you more money so that you don't have to work as much, you know? And that's a great place to start to see. So, and real estate is an amazing opportunity to do that. Mm-hmm. So I would say just keep it simple, be decisive, and what else? I don't know. I guess that's
good.
It.
You can't steal in slow motion, kind of.
Yeah.
What are your future plans as an investor, as a realtor? I know we kind of touched on that, but you have your aspirations.
Yeah. So, my future plans are always to retire, and I'm thinking when I retire, I'm like, what the hell do I do next? You know, but it's like I would love to be able to. I like to travel, and you know, so my idea would be is if I can get systems in place to where I feel that I have more freedom to do the things that I want to do, and I haven't quite figured out that sweet sauce of what that really means for me, and that's something that I'm trying to figure out. But that's what I would say. I'm not. There's not like this number that I have in mind. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know what it takes to feed me, but then I'm like, all right, but you know, I want to make sure that I have enough to where if something happens, it can be taken care of, and I also cannot have money be a thing that tells me, no, you can't go do this. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm still working on what that really means for me. I wish I could give you that direct answer.
Are you looking other places than Hammond, or are you really? I mean, I like Hammond too, but do you like Hammond and keep investing there?
So right now, I'm not, but that's not to say I haven't. I did look in. When I was looking at the Airbnb deal, I was actually considered LJ, Georgia. I went and spent some time with a realtor over that way, because it's kind of like it's cheaper to get in than Gatlinburg or one of those places to buy a cabin or whatever, but it's even kind of gotten, and I was thinking about pulling the trigger on something over there, but what I decided at the time is like, that's a long way that's far to manage. Mm-hmm. And if I have to trust somebody, and if I don't have a really relationship with somebody that I trust, I didn't want to have to go through the hassle of having to figure that out from so far. So I decided, maybe that's not the thing. So, so right now, no, but I would be open to anything that makes sense within an hour, you know? So. Yeah.
Yep. How can people keep in touch with you? What's the best way to keep in touch?
Yeah, so Exnicios Group is my real estate team. I don't even know if I said that. So I'm operating partner of Berkshire Hathaway, the Hammond office, but we also have office here in Mandeville, Uptown, Lakeview. My cell phone number is 504-416-4749. And call me anytime. I love talking about real estate. And if I can help anybody, it is awesome to see people to be able to grow their wealth through real estate, because it's something that I'm not the brightest bulb. I wasn't like really great in school, but I'm in the game, you know? Mm-hmm. So, and I know this. So if I can share it in any way and help somebody, I'm happy to do that. So.
What's the worst way you've heard someone pronounce your last name?
Oh, I don't know.
Exnicios. I didn't know.
Exnicios, Exnicios. There's like, I'm an egg instead of X, but it's Exnicios, is it? I tell people to sneeze, and it just sounds like yeah.
So normally at the end of these, we give out 2 books, and I will give out one. I was going to see if you would give out one. We normally ask the audience a question. Whoever can come up with it first, we give them the book. So in here, if you want to think about a question, I know mine already.
Oh, y'all, if y'all can follow me on Instagram, if y'all have Instagram, that would be awesome. I'm trying to get my followers up, you know what I mean? So what is it? I don't even know what it is.
It's at John Exnicios. You can spell that last.
I know. Can I write?
Which one do you want to give away?
N-I-C.
Oh, yeah, this one.
That one? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it took me 6 months.
Exnicios. Yeah, I know. Supposedly, I have like a Greek castle somewhere. No, I mean, I don't really know. Okay, so what do we do? We're asking just anybody
a question about your story or anything you want. I have one. What did John buy his first property.
Okay.
15.
Who said it first? Sorry.
Okay, like,
Put you on the spot.
I know.
How do you spell his last name?
Yeah, how do you spell the last name?
Exnicios.
There you go. And this is a good book.
We gonna have Don?